Greetings, YouTube. My mother's father, George, was a drummer. He left home at 19 to pursue that particular career. And at 19, he had a little ring of hair around his head, and that was it at 19. I inherited his particular follicle blessings. If your mother's father is bald, you're going to be bald. Well, that gave him an edge in the fact that he looked older. So he got hired by bands because he didn't look 19. He looked like a youthful guy in his 30s. And he was good. And he played drums. He played big band music. He played a little bit jazz, a little bit of blues. He played club music, covers. And he did it for 55 years. 55 years. And it was probably that when he got finally put into a care facility after a stroke, and he couldn't play his drums anymore, that I personally think that's probably what killed him. But I listened to him play many times. And he tried to instill in me an appreciation for music that at the time I was deaf to. Now I appreciate it. Now I've come to understand the artistry that was required in playing that kind of music. And he was a man dedicated to music. I mean, he hand built his own radio. He hand wrapped that copper wire around that drum so he could tune in radio stations. Go look that up and see how it's done. It's tedious. And I listen now on Friday nights to a show called American Roots. That's with 2 O's. And it comes out of New Orleans. And they play blues and jazz, early rock and roll, honky-tonk, bluegrass, little folk. They play a wide variety of types of music from the 30s to like the 60s and 70s. And they go deep into the history of the music. They talk to the artists and the producers and the set musicians and everybody else about what it was like to produce music and to be part of that history of just when music was beginning to span out across the world through radio and records. And a lot of it's black artists that you've probably never heard of. And I got pulled into it because of the blues, because I have a great affection for the blues. At 57, it speaks to me in a way that it didn't when my grandfather was alive. But they had a focus the other night. It was about drummers, rhythm, beats. And they were playing this one particular song, and it was from 1937, if I remember correctly. And it was a black drummer. And I can still feel the sensation in that car driving to work when it suddenly occurred to me that George and I both listened to this song. I'm listening to it in the year 2022 for the first time in my life. But I can guarantee you that George listened to it when it was first released, and every opportunity he could. And I can imagine him sitting there having me listen to it and literally pointing out the things I needed to pay attention to. And the light of childlike glee that would have filled his face, and that glint of incandescent focus that would have been in his eyes. And I felt closer to George than I have ever felt before, since the last time I saw him, which was a long time ago. I've got a pair of his drumsticks right over there on that shelf. When I first got them, It wasn't long after he had passed and his daughter had cleaned out his house. And when I took them out of the package, because they got sent to me, I took them out of that package, I could smell his attic where his drum set was. Because it was almost that musky, used bookstore kind of smell. It smells faded now, but I pick those drumsticks up sometimes and I hold them. Sometimes when I'm at work, I'll just find myself subconsciously drumming on something with my fingers. I can't keep a beat like George. Never could. What he could do with his hands and his feet with those pedals and those sticks and those brushes was amazing. He made his own brushes out of wire. Piano wire. The sounds you can make with those things across those drum heads. And that sharp rap of the sticks on the edge of that drum. Ping, ping. Again and again and again. The sounds of those cymbals and watching him control the sound with his fingers. Because he wanted to get something just a certain way. So damn fast. Seemed like he was doing 12 things at once. I listened to that song the other day. I was sitting there with George again. Little kid trying to understand what his grandfather was telling him. Now I'm not so little. Now